Starting.
So it's 6:35. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to CB3 Land Use Committee meeting for Tuesday, October 19th, 2021. I have a dental problem, so I just come back from my treatment, so forgive me if I speak funny. I try to speak as normal as I can pretend.
You sound fine, Jackie.
Okay, so we are conducting the meeting through Zoom, and our Vice Chair Linda is managing the platform tonight. She's going to give you a brief introduction about some Zoom features and guidelines. Linda, you are muted.
Sorry, I was paying attention to meeting somebody. Okay, so I think everybody pretty well knows how to use Zoom now. Again, I'll repeat, if you are not a member of the committee or a guest, please put your name and affiliation in the chat so we have a record of attendance. If you want to speak later after the committee is done, you can raise your hand. And if you're using a PC, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see reactions, and under that, you'll see the function raise hand. So it's very easy to do that. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, Linda. So first, Lisa, can you do a roll calling to take the attendance, please?
Yes. Jackie Wong,
Yes.
Linda Jones.
Yes.
Linda, thank you. Michael Perlis.
Yes.
Jonathan Chu. Jonathan is not present, I take it. Herman Hewitt.
Here.
Trevor Holland.
Yes.
Lisa Kaplan is present. Olympia Kazi.
Present.
Damaris Reyes. Damaris is absent. Troy Bellis. Troy, are you present?
He's absent.
And Steve Herrick.
Present.
That's the members. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Our first item on the agenda tonight is to approve the minutes for our July meeting. Let me know if anyone, any committee members have problems with our minutes, or we'll just approve it. Okay, so I see no problems. The minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda is informational presentation on potential zoning at 118 St. Mark's Place. So I believe the developer has not submitted any formal plan. This is just their first presentation to seek community board input. Tonight we have Jason and Amanda from Sheldon Lobel to present their proposal. I hope I speak the name correctly.
Actually, Jason's not presenting. It's me, Richard Lobel.
Oh, Richard. Hi, Richard.
Hi, Jackie.
So, Richard, do you need to share your screen?
Sure. I think
I can
Amanda's
share.
actually going to share hers.
Yeah, I'll share my screen if you
Hold
could.
on, Amanda.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
While Amanda's bringing up her screen, I just want to say hi. I'm Richard Lobel. I'm from Sheldon Lobel. With Amanda, we're presenting for 118 St. Mark's Place. Michael Muroff, who's the project architect, is on the screen, and Nick Pagano, who is the owner's rep, is here as well. As Jackie mentioned, this is not in ULURP, not a formal ULURP. It's really just kind of an informational meeting to take everyone's temperature. So you see in front of you 118 St. Mark's Place, which for years was a pub and restaurant and has been vacant for some time now. And so, next slide. So from the zoning map, you can see that this is in an R8B district. What does that mean? It basically means that residential uses are permitted here, but for commercial uses, you're either non-conforming or you're grandfathered in, or you're not. And if you are grandfathered in, as 118 St. Mark's Place is, you only have an opportunity to do and to have the commercial use that is in the footprint of what the existing property is. You can't make any changes. You can't expand it. Importantly for this, you can't expand it into the rear yard, which you would normally be able to do. Next slide. So this is just a tax map demonstrating the boundaries of the property. You can see we're about 5 properties in from Avenue A. And importantly, as you go towards Avenue A, there's 4 properties which are also commercial on the ground floor, and also none of them have a commercial overlay. So you have a situation on St. Mark's Place here, much like other blocks in the area, where you've got these mid-block commercial uses. They've been there for decades. They're legal, but there's no commercial overlay. So if they want to make any changes to the layout, it's challenging. If they want to make any expansion of the operation, it's challenging. Even if they want to go to DOB and make as of right changes, given that they're grandfathered, it's a challenge. And so when Nick, who's on the call with us, came to us and said that it's been a challenge, particularly during COVID, to have a commercial tenant here and that the space is vacant, one of the things we talked about was whether or not we would approach the community board and the city and ask for a commercial overlay. Next slide. So here's the land use map. And you can see from the land use map that kind of burnt orange color that's in the highlighted area in red, the red dashed lines, that's where the current building is located. And you can see from that burnt orange color, you have on our block, on the block to the north, and to some extent to the block to the south, these mid-block commercial uses, which are basically, again, their existing grandfathered uses. So you can see to the right and left, or the east and west on this block, where there's kind of that hash mark gray, those are commercial overlays. So there's a C15 overlay, which exists 100 feet from Avenue A and 100 feet from First Avenue. It's the mid-block properties which are at a disadvantage because they're not covered. And so the proposal here would be to extend a commercial overlay to cover those, at least our property, and probably would extend from Avenue A to cover these adjoining properties. Next slide. Now, why is this particularly important for 118 St. Mark's? Well, you can see, and this is somewhat of a cloudy picture, but you get the idea that 118 St. Mark's is a 25-foot wide property. So that's a 2,500 square foot lot. Now, this rezoning is not about bulk. It's not about the size of the building. Many times we come to the community board for rezonings, which upzone a property. That's not this. This is merely to lay down a commercial overlay, which is an overlay which allows for use. So the bulk of this building doesn't change pursuant to this rezoning. In fact, there are certain community facility uses which could build into the rear, but that's not what's sought here. What's sought here is to allow for a larger commercial use to be able to inhabit the space. The space right now is very limited. And you can see when you look to the properties to the east, particularly the 3 properties to the east, those buildings all extend further to the rear. Those are already non-conforming, non-complying grandfathered uses. So those have an opportunity. Those are already extended. Ours is not, and ours can't without a commercial overlay. Next slide. So this is just a picture. You can see the straight on view. You can see, of course, if you're familiar with the block, as you go towards Avenue A, and Amanda, feel free to page through to a couple of slides. You can see again right there in particular the commercial uses which extend down to Avenue A. So if you want to cut from here, Amanda, to the last slide, we can kind of show what the layout of the property is and the reason why we're here. So right now, this ground floor commercial use is basically 1,000 square feet or so. I'm not sure, Mike and Nick, you may have the exact square footage, but whatever it is, it's pretty limited. And particularly now, when business and retail and restaurants have been hit very hard, it's hard to allow for a restaurant use to operate in that space on what amounts to be roughly 760 square feet of commercial area and then a kitchen. So right now you see the area of consideration, which is the area in red. That area right now is is basically, that's fixed and cannot be used for commercial use. Potentially what would happen is if you allow for the commercial overlay, they would be able to do additional commercial use in that area, would be able to have, seating and chairs in that area to allow for additional restaurant use. They can't do that without a commercial overlay. So that's really kind of, again, we are very early in the process, as in like, this is our first real official meeting to discuss this. And so we wanted to come and sit down with the community board and see what your thoughts were and potentially talk about how we might be able to get support for a project like this. With that, I'll turn it over to questions and comments, and both Nick and Mike are here. Maybe Nick, if you could just talk for a second about some of the challenges you faced getting commercial tenants. I know that's been an issue.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. I'm Nick. Thank you again for getting together this call with us. Yeah, so I'm owner's rep. Owners had the property for about 30 years now, and the space has been vacant for about 4. So despite actively trying to fill the space, it's been pretty difficult to find a tenant and a quality tenant. So I guess the reason why we came down this avenue is to seek this opportunity to try to get the right tenant, and I guess maybe even just a tenant in general. It's been a lot of effort been put into it, but once you go into the space itself, the existing area, even with that stairwell for the residential use on the last slide, you could see how it kind of makes it extremely limited. The kitchen's built out, but again, it doesn't really offer much opportunity to market, to fill it. And we keep getting questions on the usage of the rear yard, and our answer is usually the same. So I figured we would just take this opportunity and see if it would allow for, a nice tenant to fill the building and, ultimately help building the block. And yeah, that's why we're here.
And I think Nick, for me, looks sideways right now. I don't know if for everyone else, if he's that way as well.
Yeah.
There we go, Nick. Okay, good. Right side up.
Perfect. Sorry about that. I appreciate it.
So with that, we're happy to answer questions and take comments.
Committee members, do you have any questions? Susan?
Yeah, I think you said Avenue A was C1, but it's C2.
I said it was C15.
It's C2.
Well, I mean, even better, really. C2 permits a wider range of commercial uses.
Well, that's my point. You could actually put like a theater there in the middle of the block, that kind of thing.
All right, so I'm looking at the zoning map right now.
I
And
just checked it on the Do It map.
so why don't we, I mean, this isn't really, it's not really something up for debate because it's a fact. So Amanda, do you want to like share your screen and show the commercial overlay? Right, so this hash mark right here, right? So even going further if you want, but you can see there's a grid on the bottom that shows you the C1.
Right. Oh, so you're saying those blocks
Zola
are.
has, I'm sorry, Zola has it as a C15.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. I stand corrected. I think those blocks must be different then.
You're right, actually, Susan, that there are blocks nearby that are C2. I think if you actually
Right.
go 2 blocks south, but this one happens to be a C15, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's really interesting.
Sure.
Mike?
So you're just requesting a commercial overlay for this one lot. There was a point where you said potentially other lots east of this, like to connect
Correct.
to Avenue A, but
Correct. So Mike, thank you for the question. The City Planning Commission, when they do these rezonings, would not be able to just rezone or at least put a commercial overlay for one lot. That essentially would be found to be spot zoning, where they just do one lot. So what they look for is context, and here they would the likely context would come from Avenue A, where they would take that existing commercial overlay and extend it to cover those 4 intervening lots as well as our lot. Right now, those other uses are all commercial ground floor uses, I believe, and would and thank you, Amanda, who's way better than I am at probably Adobe. So she just drew a red line around it. So that would allow for for those uses to now be existing conforming uses rather than non-conforming. So yes, the answer would be that we would draw to the east, where those first two businesses along St. Mark's are already commercial and already have an overlay. This would just extend that overlay over these additional properties.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't say that at the beginning, so I think it's important to be upfront about that.
Sure.
You know, I think it's going to be a tough sell. There's a reason why, if you go back to that slide, Amanda, sorry. There's a reason why those commercial overlays are on the busier, wider streets, right? And so there's a reason why it was planned this way. And I think these uses are non-conforming because the idea was at some point those businesses would sort of trickle out and the zoning would, you know, the businesses would conform to the zoning. And so, you know, I think a lot of people have a lot to say about, you know,
Sure.
St. Mark's and, you know, activity there, especially with open restaurants. I was also just going to ask, so just, you know, I think there's probably going to be a lot of people in the community, especially people who live around there, who already see, you know, an oversaturation of bars, specifically on St. Mark's between First and A. And then I wanted to ask, you know, they were saying that the landlord needs this to be able to find a tenant. What is the rent per square footage that the landlord is asking right now? And has he considered lowering it to find a tenant?
So I'll start with the first question, which just had to do with the nature of the overlay. So you take a look 2 blocks to the north of us, and you can take a look, and Amanda can kind of point her cursor over there. But 2 blocks to the north of us, you can see how those, and again, we benefit from having a colored map here, and you benefit from showing that the burnt orange is ground floor commercial, whereas the more yellowish color is residential. That block, if you put a commercial overlay down, you would basically be creating a situation where it is not really within the context. You see that there's about 10 lots there, all of which have ground floor residential. When you go to our block and you specifically go to our half of the block where the commercial overlay is proposed, there's 4 commercial uses already existing, and those uses are going to be there no matter whether or not a rezoning gets approved or not. Those are commercial uses, they're allowed to remain. There's 1 lot which is just adjacent to the commercial overlay, which looked to me from the map, and when I looked at the photos, that it also looked commercial, but I'm not exactly sure. It looked like it had a commercial storefront. But so yes, I get it. I think that the zoning districts and the zoning maps were set down in 1961. And a lot of times, I think the maps reflected what was kind of expected as far as development during the time. But this is a block where clearly the commercial uses there are already there and have been there for a while and would just benefit from being legal and conforming. I mean, they're legal now, but they're legal non-conforming. We'd like to make them legal conforming.
And the question about lowering the rent?
Yeah.
And what he's asking for rent, maybe the landlord's rep could answer that.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I could find out and follow up on that though.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Nick. In fact, that was the question in my mind too. I want to know what is the fair market rent for this much of a space at this site. It'll be like it'll be informational for us.
Sure.
Thank you, Nick. Trevor?
Yeah, just real quick, a couple of things. Number one, thank you for that presentation. It was short, but I actually understand what you're trying to do, as opposed to some of those presentations we've seen for 2 hours and we're still trying to figure it out. So thank you. Secondly, and you may have mentioned it, but what is that rear lot being used for presently?
Nick, Michael, can you weigh in on the current use? Michael?
It's current.
Go ahead.
Yeah, its current use is just an empty section of the lot.
So-
I'm not sure, but yeah, Michael.
Could I say so? I'm sorry about that. Currently, it's vacant. It's not being used for anything. There's some vegetation in there. It had been used previously as a stable, also And some of the remnants are there, and there's some brick walls around it, but that's basically it. Nothing.
So the residents currently have access to that and use it?
They could access it, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Trevor. Olympia.
Yes, so I was wondering, is there like precedent for this kind of practice? Is this something that you've done with other properties in other parts of the city?
We have, yeah. There's you know, the commercial overlays, if you have a situation where, first of all, if you have existing non-conforming ground floor commercial, which everyone calls grandfathered commercial uses, the city has been really good about commercial overlay rezonings, because regardless of any other factors, if you've got a non-conforming commercial use, whenever you go into the Department of Buildings, the application process and the evidence that you have to give them to make changes to your layout are fairly intense. Whereas once you have the commercial overlay, those become fairly routine applications. So the city generally supports that. They like to support retail where appropriate. And so we've done a number of rezonings, particularly in Manhattan and Queens, where we've laid down a commercial overlay. We've done a couple in Community Board 2, and it's a fairly common thing. I think one of the big things is, as between rezonings for bulk and use, when we rezone bulk, oftentimes we're taking a building that can be 10,000 square feet and making it something which can be 40,000 square feet. That's not this. The building here, the building shell, the envelope, is currently permitted to be 10,000 square feet, and that remains. It's an R8B, which allows for a 4 FAR. The difference here, of course, is the ability to use the ground floor for commercial, and not even all the ground floor, because much of the ground floor is already covered. It's the ability to allow a potential tenant to get a little bit more space and generate a little bit more operating income.
Thank you.
Trevor, is that a new hand or is that old hand?
It's an old hand. I'll take it down. Sorry.
Thank you, Trevor. Lisa, and then Susan.
Yeah, thank you. And I apologize if this was stated. I'm not too good at doing walking and chewing gum. I was dealing with the minutes, so I may have missed some of what you said. But because we know we can't do spot zoning, I heard you say you would extend the overlay. Are you saying it would be extended just to your building from Avenue A? So it would incorporate 3 additional buildings? Is that correct?
Correct.
I see. And can you tell me what exists in those 3 buildings at this point?
Sure. Amanda, can you go back to the streetscape? So just probably to refresh the recollection of a lot of people in the meeting, there's commercial uses in the form of, I think, a restaurant next door. That middle use looks to be a market, and then an additional restaurant next door to that. There's one more picture probably, Amanda, which shows maybe one more property. Can take a quick look. No, other side. Yeah, so it's the restaurant next door, the market, and then this other commercial property. There may be.
I can go to a different Google Street View if you like and walk down the block. Let me switch screens.
Okay. It's lucky it's you, because if it's me, I'm usually accidentally showing emails from my kids. There we go.
Does everyone see this? See the street? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the corner, and I'll go down the block.
Right, so
Yeah.
the corner and the first St. Mark's facing property are both within the commercial overlay.
Right,
But there's just this additional one that's underneath the awning, which that one looks to be commercial. And then there's the restaurant and markets next door. So again, and they're all these, I think that not all of, or almost all commercial uses.
So they're grandfathered. And so are you saying that there was a restaurant in the current location, but because you were unable to find a new tenant within the requirement for continual use, that's why at this point there cannot be a restaurant in this facility?
Well,
location?
that's not exactly, it's almost what we're saying. I mean, there's open DOB applications right now for commercial use in that space, which basically serve to extend the time where you can have a non-conforming use. It's really just that the open commercial use only extends back a certain amount of square footage. And so right now that space, and again, Michael, I appreciate it if you do have a number. I don't know. I think the number
About 1,000 square feet, and the problem is it's a very constricted layout. There's actually no room for a kitchen in it. If you take a look, and perhaps Banda, if you went back to it, it's really with the COVID and with the ability to have like outdoor parklets, it really could perhaps add some square footage, but really not much. If you see, the shaded area is all outdoor space on the top or on the proposed, but the kitchen is so minuscule, there's really no room for any seating or patrons. And if you take a look, you can see that the way that the stairs are in there, it really constricts the use of that being viable for any retail space at all.
Lisa, does he answer your question?
Yes. The short answer is yes.
Susan?
Yeah, so one thing for non-conforming is if they're vacant for 2 years, they revert to residential. In the last 6 months, we've had nearby 3 or 4 different properties found to be vacant over 2 years. I've never had it happen on St. Mark's, but that is one difference that you would no longer have if it were an overlay. And the other, of course, which you've been referring to, is even though it's non-conforming and can be used for commercial, they can't use, if other than the COVID emergency, they can't use the backyard or even expand to the sidewalk, even in the private property, if they haven't been using that. So there are the residential protections that we may lose because of the text amendment. And if we lose them, I would think it's almost irrelevant. But if we don't lose them, I think keeping it non-conforming makes a big difference as far as use of the road bed, the sidewalk, and the backyard, whether it's non-conforming as opposed to the overlay.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely no bones about the fact that we can't make any enlargement to this use without a commercial overlay. I mean, Michael talked about the kitchen. You can see it on the screen right now. You can't expand that kitchen 1 square foot without running afoul of the law. So yeah, I mean, that's what we're seeking to do.
But what I'm saying is the difference to the community may be irrelevant if we lose our, the text amendment, if we lose the residential protections. But if it doesn't go through, it makes a big difference on the outs. It makes a big difference to residents living on the block, I would say.
Understood. Yeah, and the other thing, and one of the reasons why we're here, and one of the reasons we're here so early, is because we want the good and the bad and what the feeling is of the committee. If we don't have anyone right now. If the idea here is, well, we like it, we don't like it, we would like it with these conditions, what have you, we would rather have that information than just walk away and say, forget it. I mean, Nick's in the room with us. And if the committee says that, that this looks okay, we like it the way it is, if the committee has suggestions or wants us to come back, we have the flexibility to do that right now. Oftentimes we come to you when we're in ULURP. That's not the case here. They don't even have an application. So we appreciate the comments. We'd rather listen to what you have to say and have you say yes, but than to say absolutely not. And I mean, that's, you know, it's important to us.
Thank you, Richard. Olympia and then Michael.
Thank you. So the reason my first question was about precedent is just because, you know, I haven't dealt with something like that before. And a little bit to, you know, Mike said earlier, the concern about, you know, the noise and the backyard, and then what Susan was discussing. What I would like to understand before even considering something like that, I understand why you would need it, right? From the perspective of the tenant, but from the perspective of, it's not just that it's a leftover from many years that they projected less of a commercial use or etc. It is because they know that above that street, there are people sleeping, kids going to school, people going to work, etc. And so I want to understand if you make commercial overlay permanent beyond the fact that they cannot relapse after 2 years, as Susan was saying, etc. What are other kind of protections that you are taking away from the non-conforming? But from the perspective, not of you, that you need to go through, as you explain, a more complex process when you try to change things within the building, but from the terms of the residents near you and across from you. So what are we losing? Can you speak to that, or do we need to do research on our own?
Well, yeah, some of it I think you can just see from looking at the screen right now. So right now that yard can't be used for commercial use. To the extent the commercial overlay is permitted, that yard can be used for commercial use. So, you know, again, understanding all of the concerns and protections for tenants and stuff, that's like the primary effect, which is that they're able to do that. There's other things which, you know, which could be possible here, which may help to the extent that, for example, once you have so for example, we talked about the fact that this is not a rezoning for bulk, because the building is going to be whatever size it can be, does not change pursuant to this. What does change, however, is the ability to build this use into the rear yard. Now, if you wanted to, for example, somebody said, I want to open up doctor's offices on the ground floor, they could build the building out to the rear yard and put those doctor's offices in, because those are community facilities. If somebody wanted to build the back of the building out, and let's just say, for example, right now that it wasn't a restaurant use, that they wanted to use it for a retail use, they couldn't do that right now because none of that use could be commercial. To the extent that they got a commercial overlay and it was a retail use, they would now be able to cover the backyard and create a structure there and have their retail use, which would now be able to extend into the back. So I'm not sure whether or not that kind of answers things a little bit, but that's one of the things that would be offered by the rezoning, is the opportunity to actually have like a building back there, a structure back there, which is, you know, which depending on concerns, neighborhood concerns, may be a good thing.
Thank you, Richard. Michael.
I'm sorry, did you say how long the landlord has owned this building?
I didn't. Nick, do you have that information?
Yeah, it's about 30 years, I believe.
Right. So, yeah, just to me, I see online that he owns, it looks like 56 other buildings in the 5 boroughs. And so, you know, for me, I'm not concerned about, you know, a landlord's ability to make more money when he owns so many other buildings, and, you know, he's owned this building for decades. So that sort of argument, I think, in terms of like, the community is sort of a hard sell, because there are already have been, like we've been discussing, issues with oversaturation. You know, if you build this building out, I don't even know if it would be possible to the lot line, but I think the building on 7th, right, it wouldn't be because of the lot line. So yeah, I guess just personally, you know, this landlord has owned the building for 30 years, and presumably there's been a tenant in it for most of those 30 years. Yeah, I'm just not persuaded by the argument that the landlord can't make money from this commercial space, because he's had it for a long time, and he owns so many other buildings that it's not a great argument in my mind.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Michael.
Just to respond, I get it. There's like something to be said for, okay, you've got 1,000 square foot space and you can get this type of tenant and this type of business. And now you've got potentially 2,000 square feet. What are you able to do with the space? What kind of tenant can you get in there without just making it dollars and cents? Are there different qualities of tenants that can be in there? Is there something that the community board thinks is a more preferable use for, like, to have a bad tenant at 1,000 square feet versus something that maybe people would want to see more in 2,000 square feet? So it's like, yeah, I get it. I mean, people own buildings and they have properties, but it's just a matter of, sometimes it's just a matter of like what the quality is of who's going to be in there.
Thank you, Richard. Lisa?
Yeah, so again, maybe I missed this, but you're saying that this would allow the landlord to arguably build, I guess, at least 24 feet. My understanding is there has to be at least a 10-foot rear yard, right? For
They'd be
even
able to
in,
build full.
pardon me?
They'd be able to build full.
They'd be able to build full.
To the lot line?
Yes. But they could do that as with with medical offices as well today.
Community facility can in a residential district, community facility can build full as well to the rear.
Okay, and you're saying there is enough zoning bulk left to do a one-story building to the lot line?
Yes, the building itself right now probably amounts to between, according to public records, between 5,000 and 5,100 square feet. It's on a 2,500 square foot lot. There's a 4 FAR, so the building itself could be 10,000 square feet. So they have got the floor area available. They just don't have the use.
Right. And can you tell us, is that the expectation, is to build an addition on the building, or it's not contemplated at this time, but it would be possible?
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, I think part of it has to do with how the process goes and the conversation with you guys. Nick, I mean, is there like, do you have thoughts on this, or is it still kind of up in the air?
It's still up in the air now. A lot of it will be contingent on this call, but could do a build out, could keep it open. So just kind of using this as, I guess, a base direction before we kind of go a little further.
Since you're looking for an opinion, I'm not very good at holding mine back, so I'm going to tell you that I couldn't support this. One thing I've learned over my 45 years in this community is that even an agreement with a particular landlord doesn't tell the long-term history. We were to approve this and a new landlord were to come in, God knows what could be built there. And in my experience, and this is a mixed-use neighborhood, and we like it like that. We have traditionally not been very supportive of commercial uses on residential streets. And we, in fact, took a very strong stand against the commercial zoning of St. Mark's, one block to the west. I just feel like permitting on 4 buildings an extension of commercial use really does have an impact on the neighborhood. And backyard use is extraordinarily controversial. Noise tends to rise directly up and affect residential tenants. And further, creating a precedent like this, again, I have, like Olympia, I've never heard of an extension of a commercial overlay. being approved in our district. And I don't want to start that precedent. I know once we do it, it's going to make it harder to say no to somebody else. So I appreciate your coming to us and being so forthright, but I'm sorry, I can't support it.
Sure. And Lisa, just to be clear, to the extent that you had an opportunity to bind the owner and actually dictate, conditions upon which the community board would consider this, would that move the needle at all?
Like I said, unless it's a deed restriction,
Right.
it wouldn't have any effect on a subsequent owner,
Right.
like,
No, I
so
understand.
no.
No, okay. So in deed restriction, that would may be different, but other than that, no.
Correct. And I don't see how we'd have the power to do a deed restriction.
Okay.
Herman? And after Herman, I think I'm going to wrap up the topic so we can move to the next topic.
Yeah,
Herman?
mine won't be very long. First of all, in terms, my idea of coming to us asking for this is so that other commercial uses beside a bar or a liquor establishment, which I see basically would be the benefit for this action, and not what you may call it, a doctor's office or a community facility, or even a drugstore or something like that. My question is, when I saw the explanation that you couldn't do a spot zoning, but it would go and be initiated for the other buildings next to it. Did this landowner speak to or have any agreement to participate in this zoning that would benefit them also?
Right. So thanks for the question, Herman. We have not reached out to those owners yet because until we've got even an idea of coming in for an application, we can't really say anything to them. So right now you are the first stop on the train. We come to you guys first to see what the appetite is of the committee for something like this. So that's the first thing. So the other thing is that those buildings, and when you take a look at them, 3 of those are already built out to the rear. So they already benefit, like the bulk of their buildings is already in the back, and we're kind of like scrunched into the front. You see our floor plate is not that deep. So that's one of the reasons that we would be we'd have the best reason to rezone to the rear, because we've got, we're the ones who have the least amount of building space on the ground floor. With regards to the other thing you said, which is important for Nick to hear and for him to tell other people on the applicant team, is that, if there's a discussion which they're having, which is who's going to take the space. And if the discussion from the community board is, we can't abide by a restaurant here in the rear, what we may be able to abide by is a retail use, a clothing store, a drugstore, which was covered and went into the rear. That's information for us to be able to take back and say, well, this is where the conversation is. So I appreciate the comment and the question, and that's kind of where we are.
Well, I just follow Lisa's reasoning, and there's no way I think that we could hold any present or future property owner of this space to conform to anything if we approve it.
With the understanding that if we entered a deed restriction against the property and made that a binding condition, then there may be some further discussion.
I wouldn't say, but I'll take that as
Okay. All right.
Okay. Thank you. Susan, you have comments or questions?
Yeah, just one comment. You know, even pre-COVID, there were a lot of vacancies on Avenue A.
Mhm.
I don't understand why you think that you would be able to get a non-eating, drinking establishment in there, even if you extended the building. It's not, I mean, that block, I wouldn't say is conducive to that because it is mostly eating and drinking, many of which don't open till late at night. So I don't know what the foot traffic is during the day. But I mean, you're saying that you would restrict it to a certain use, and then you'd have no idea really if you could even rent for that use.
That's right. Like one of the reasons that we're here and having this conversation is to open up the whole range of what's possible at the site. If it's rezoning with additional, with limited uses into the rear of an enclosed building, that's just information for us to know. If it's no rezoning and, restaurant bar under the existing conditions, that's also information for us to know. So I can't give you an answer as far as who I think we can get, because who we go and try to get depends on this conversation. So yes, that's correct.
Olympia, we need to move. Your
Yes.
question gonna be short or
I
long?
don't have a question for
Okay.
this applicant, but I want a note for the committee. That's why I raised my hand, because listening to this presentation, Jackie, you know how we have certain things that as a CB3, like there are guidelines, like we always ask certain things on certain issues, right? So actually, I feel that this is a backyard, and it was told during the presentation that residents could use it, but it's not given that they are able to use it right now above. And I actually believe, given what happened at COVID, open space is vital. And so I would almost want us to consider, so basically in the minutes, if we can keep it as a note, like to always, whatever decision we make as CB3, push for if there is backyard space to be made available to residents, because like especially during the pandemic was like life-saving for many of us having access to a backyard, but generally it helps quality of life. So it's not really related to this presentation,
Right.
but it really brought this to my mind, and I would like us to consider this as a committee.
Well, that is a larger discussion. So the developer is not asking, the owner is not asking us to make a decision tonight, and we don't need to vote tonight. I guess they just want to get a sense how each committee members feel about their plan. And I think your point is well taken by the firm and also the owner's representative. So thank you on that. And I also want to thank Richard and Amanda and Nick for sharing your plan with us tonight. Also be upfront about your goals, and you heard the members' comments, and I hope our comments can be helpful for you to come up with whatever plan for this site in the future.
I appreciate that, Jackie, and all of us do on this side. We this is great for us to come in and get feedback, and even Olympia's comment just now is important because there's a possibility of, first of all, the ground floor. Nick, I don't know what the contractual relationship is with the building and who's able to use that, but and potentially what you do is you create an open space on the roof of the enlargement, which is, guaranteed for the residents of the building, and you can make it green and you can build it out. So there's some options that we've heard tonight. I understand. Thank you for laying out the challenges. There's, it's good to get that out. We're going to have another talk internally and then, figure out whether or not we want to drop it or come back in and maybe check in and tell you what we're thinking.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, development team. Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Right. So we are done for this topic. Next topic on the agenda is, let me see, there is Two Bridges rezoning plan update. We have Elise from GOES and also Paula from Take Root Justice tonight, and they are going to do the presentation.
Thanks, Jackie. Hi, everybody. I'm going to have Paula and I introduce ourselves, and then we'll get into it. For those who don't know me, my name is Elise High Street. I'm the senior organizer at Goals. And Paula, you want to introduce yourself?
All right. Hi, everybody. Paula Siegel from Take Root Justice. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the senior staff attorney in our Equitable Neighborhoods unit. And for tonight's purposes, we are counsel to Goals, CAV, and TAF-LES on the application to create a new special district in the Two Bridges neighborhood on the Lower East Side, an application that the community board here is a co-applicant with my clients on. I'll turn it back to Elise.
Thanks, Paula. Okay, so updates. The first big one is that the Department of City Planning accepted our most recent reasonable worst case development scenario at the beginning of August, which is really exciting. We've been working towards that for a while now. So that means that we are approved to move into the environmental review process. Specifically, we need to do a short form environmental assessment statement, or an EAS. We're looking for an individual or a firm to do that for us. We've secured the funds for it, and based off of that funding, we are hoping to have that EAS complete or mostly complete by the end of the calendar year. So far, we've reached out to, I'd say, about 10, maybe a little bit more firms and individuals to help us do that, to no success, unfortunately. Okay, Paula's telling me more. She's a better counter than I am. So we sent Jackie the RFP. So if anyone here tonight knows of a firm or an individual that is capable and potentially interested in doing the EAS for us, we'd really appreciate you reaching out. You can get the RFP language from Jackie, or you can also reach out to Paula or I, and we can connect on that as well. Check my notes, make sure I'm not missing anything. Cool, so that's it for the application at the moment. The general timeline that we have in mind for our application right now is we expect the environmental review process to take a couple of months, and then we will move into ULURP. So I think a reasonably optimistic timeline is that our plan could be passed and put into law within a year from now. I'm thinking like maybe February or March would be the start of ULURP. I'm sure people have questions about the developers timeline, which we don't have any certainty of, but they have filed permits. It's not entirely clear how long it's going to take for those permits to get approved. It could be a month from now, it could be 6 months from now, could be more than that, even less than that. That's a decision that DOB has to make. So that's sort of the timeline piece of things. On another note, outside of specifically the application, we had a really great action this past Saturday at Pier 35, organized by Goals, CAV, and TAF-LES. We had over 300 people come out. It was in 3 different languages, and we got a lot of feedback and response that people were really energized and excited about what we were doing with our plan. So we are ready to just keep riding that wave of energy to keep things moving forward and build even more community power behind this plan as we get into the ULURP process.
Thank you.
Yeah. Questions about that before we move into the next piece of the update?
Yeah, can I ask you a question? I just want to clarify if you said we have to contract a EAS vendor by the end of this year. Is that what you said? So we only have like 1.5 months left to contract a EAS vendor?
I think there's 2.5 months left in this year. Jackie. Though it's gotten really, really
I
dark.
have a dental problem.
I think Halloween hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
But yes, that's why we're asking for help.
Okay.
Yeah,
Do really need to find a vendor.
Exactly.
Okay,
It is either way, it's a tight timeline and it's something we're struggling with. So any support that anyone could give, we would be really happy.
Okay, so do you need, I mean, I don't know if community board can help you circulate the RFP to Susan, is there something we can do to help to circulate the RFP?
We've never done anything like that.
Okay.
I wouldn't even know where to start.
Okay.
Can we ask just folks on the committee, Jackie, if you send it to the committee, can we just ask committee members to share it with their networks?
Sure, if they have the connection.
As much as you're comfortable sharing it, that would be super, super useful. We have talked to a lot of people who really want to help, but don't feel like they have the team that we really need for this application. So keep
Thank
it
you.
moving. And thank you,
Okay.
Steve. I see your note in the chat. That would be great.
Okay. I see a lot of hands, so I don't, let me see. I think Olive,
Oh, hi. I'm
is the first.
obviously don't sit on this committee, but I just wanted to say a few things about the Two Bridges project. So my daughter has just started school in pre-K at PS 184M Shongwen, which is actually severely impacted by this development. And particularly as the size of these towers is going to go up, is going to block natural light from hitting the playground of that school, which is a real drawback, especially as our daughter is just starting now, and she hopefully will be there through 8th grade. And I know there's a lot of other parents of that school that are particularly worried not only about the impacts to the playground, but also the impact of the changing of the community and what that will do to the school. And I just wanted to put that on record as a concern as a parent of somebody in that school and as a resident of CB3 as well. And if I can be helpful in supporting and advocating and forming bridges to parents in the school, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you.
I'm gonna put my email in the chat, Ollie, and you can reach out to me. We can maybe coordinate.
Thank you.
Michael?
Yeah, sorry. So I'm just trying to clarify, you're looking for like a planning or engineering firm to do the EAS? And do you know, maybe this is like not appropriate on this call, but do you know the budget or like
We're not circulating the max number because we'd love to get bids and hopefully they won't all top out the max, but we have a budget. It's reasonable.
It's a short form, right?
Yeah, it's a short form and it's not a development proposal. So other than having to do it, it is actually not a very complicated project. It's just that environmental assessment statements are a very particular skill set in this town.
Yeah, the only firm I know is PHA Philip Habib, which you've probably already reached out to, but they usually do like, Hudson Yards.
Yeah, so feel free to reach out. Feel free if you know folks there, feel free. Jackie has the language. There's a link to the reasonable worst case development scenario as accepted in the email that Jackie can forward you. They can take a look at it. We would love your help. We would love their help if they have an idea for somebody else.
But it's paid. It's not like a pro bono thing, right?
It is paid.
Okay.
It is not $1 million, but it is some actual real money that we have raised.
Ola, I told you committee member is gonna ask you
I
about.
know, it was the first question. I'm like, we're still not telling.
Where's the money? How much is the money?
Because if we tell you what the max is, that's what every single proposal is gonna be, right? And then.
Lisa?
Yeah, I'm just curious, what is the deadline based on?
The funding. And also, the faster we do this, the more likely it is to actually impact.
Clearly, you want it sooner rather than later, but it's not that would not be a drop dead date, but funding has to be spent or committed.
I think we can bend it and make it committed, but initially the request was spent. I think we'll need to be creative, but we can.
Olympia.
Yes, so one of my questions was related to what Mike was saying, and basically because we're one of the co-applicants to bid out something, because we are a city kind of entity, whatever we can call it, there may be restrictions. I don't know. That's why, no, I see Paula saying no. And then basically, I just wasn't clear. I don't know what is the second update that you're going to give us, but basically, how has the fact that they applied for licensing affects everything that we're doing right now, time-wise? Because I'm sure it has changed a little bit, everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think really it just puts us on a tighter timeline and just makes the race against the clock even that much more important. And the timeliness is just like a really important aspect of this whole thing, which, I mean, it has been for a while now. That's not anything new. it just feels more urgent now because permits have been applied for and whatnot. That's really the only change, I would say.
Thank you, Elise. And we have second portion of the presentation.
Yeah, and I actually just wanted to address a little bit more of what Elise said a second
Okay.
ago before we move on. They have started filing their plans with DOB for review. Usually they do that a whole bunch of times, especially for buildings this big. It's a whole process with Department of Buildings. And if you remember, the City Planning Commission actually put a bunch of restrictive declarations on the properties in 2018. So they have some things in them that also have to get done before DOB can approve the permits. So plan review, we hope, will actually take some time because not only are they reviewing engineering for these massive buildings, but they also have to check off a whole bunch of other agency things that are in the restrictive declarations before DOB is actually allowed to approve the plans, even if they like them, right? And so that's kind of where we are. Once DOB starts approving things, it may still matter if we can get the property rezoned, but it will be a big fight to make the new zoning apply. But I think I think we're still in a place where we have a little window and we can use it. That window will start closing. It hasn't started closing yet.
Any other questions before we move to the second part of the meeting, the presentation?
I did raise my hand, but I'm not even sure if I'm not even sure if I should ask this because it's more rhetorical. So Paula, I'm sorry, I'm going to ask it.
Wait, Trevor, what are you doing?
If we were to look at zoning a larger area, the entire Lower East Side, do you think we could get that done before the permits are approved?
I don't know if if CB3 wanted to put in another application that included a larger area, you should. Something y'all want to do. You really should. You've got to start where we started, right? You translate what you want into zoning text. You send them a pre-application statement. You have a bunch of meetings. You then meet with the environmental people at DCP. You kind of go through this whole process before they say, okay, this thing really is zoning and it's fully baked. We can move you into kind of the more formal steps of environmental review and ULURP. And as you remember, for us, because we're not a developer proposing to upzone our own property and build something shiny, just that process of getting DCP to accept the idea of this special district as zoning took a bunch of meetings, and DCP, those meetings get scheduled based on regulations, right? We submit applications, they have 90 days to respond. They have never taken less than 88 days to respond to anything from us because they can drag it out. And any new other application for any size area that needs to go through that. And I think that if it's a more complicated application that isn't a universal set of regulations like a special district, that process would be even more complex.
Thank you, Paula, for sharing that insight. And I think you should share with more local elected offices. Okay.
Whoa. Oh.
We have to move Olympia.
Yeah, so sorry. I was just, Jackie, can someone make it so I can screen share quickly?
Yeah.
Very helpful for this last piece, but I'll start talking.
Jackie, my point of order is just for posterity because we're being recorded. And I think there are a couple of people in the audience that I'm not sure they're familiar with the committee. So Trevor, who just spoke, and Damaris, who are both members of the committee, are also involved with the co-applicants. So just for conflicts of interest, we should state that.
Thank you. Thank you, Olympia.
Thank you. I know I would have expressed that it was a conflict of interest for me too, but thank you for doing that.
But we are not taking a vote, so.
This is just an update. That's why I was sort of like, Trevor, what are you doing? You can ask questions anytime you want to. The other thing that we wanted to make sure that we are not losing sight of is when we first came to the community board back in 2017, saying, let's partner on getting protections in place for the waterfront area and Two Bridges. The other piece of protections that was part of the package was the open space and the underwater lots in the area. Particularly, I hope this map is familiar to folks. This is the Manhattan Bridge. This is water, but it's also zoned for skyscrapers right now. And under the Bloomberg, I know, Damaris was like, oh yeah. So under the Bloomberg administration, they definitely put out pictures that were like, we're gonna build a wall of high rises here, and that's how we'll protect everybody from flooding. We'll just put rich people in the way. This was, when we brought this up earlier, this was part of what the community board, you all said you wanted to partner on. Then we met with the borough president's office. The borough president's office said, oh, this is a cleanup job. We'll take it on. And then a lot of staff changes happened at the borough president's office, and they haven't actually followed up in taking it on. They've mostly been, they keep saying yes, but then not doing much. So we actually made this one pager, and with the input of this committee, it has a date on it that is like, you know, right before COVID, a time where nobody remembers. And I think we reviewed it at a meeting like this, and we made it because the borough president's office in February 2020 convened a meeting with all of the agencies that would be impacted by this. And they actually said what DCP had been saying to us about the special district. Oh, you want protections, but this isn't zoning. You want us to do some other things. And the borough president's office said to them, okay, come back with a proposal. Great. We will write down what we want you to do. We will write down the desired outcomes of this protective action, which we did. They are here. And you all tell us what happens next. If this isn't zoning, tell us how to do it. And we got stuck right there. And then the borough president's office had a lot of staff that changed. And we wanted to make sure the community board is aware of this, because our understanding, and Jackie, tell me if I'm overstating it, but basically these are all very good ideas that need to be put into law somewhere, because actually development in those underwater lots and on those parcels is not such a faraway fantasy. It is something that folks are talking about. And even though the borough president's office has said they're working on this, as far as we can tell, they're not working on this. So just wanted to make sure you all are aware. Jackie also has this and can circulate it. I'm just scrolling through quickly. And maybe we can collaborate on a next step.
So Paula, when you say they said they are working on it, who told you they are working? I mean, I guess it's from borough president's office. So
remember Tara, who used to work there? She was actually the one who convened the meeting with the agencies, but then she left.
I remember that. I was at that meeting too.
Yeah, so exactly. I wasn't, so I'm a little bit fuzzy, but I think I look at a lot of people who are here now were also at that meeting. And so she was the one that convened it, but then she left. And now there's a new land use director. And I think there's been a little bit of a lost in translation moment in between the staff. Because when we spoke with the new land use director, she said, oh, yeah, this is moving forward. We already submitted it. And then we asked for a copy of what they submitted. And she came back and said, oh, we didn't actually write it yet.
So we want to find out if there's any updates or what's the status of this plan, this proposal. And also, well, but given their office only has 2 months left, so we don't know what they can do or they cannot do, but at least we want to find out the status of this proposal, I guess.
Yep, exactly. Okay. And I'm sorry, I'm just like showing you a big screen full of text, but Jackie will hopefully forward that one page. Or folks have it. It hasn't changed since February. So if you were on the committee in February, you already have it.
Yeah, Olympia.
Yes, so I was in the committee in February, but I guess COVID brain, I mean, I literally don't remember much of these. And so my question would be, especially if you think there could be legislation or whatever, I think the first step would be to do some resolution specific around that, because I don't remember us having a special resolution around that. And so basically I'm asking the other members of the committee, do you remember having either within the ULURP, did we had a paragraph in the 20,000 comments of the ULURP about this thing, or should we?
No. I actually was going to ask the same question and didn't get a chance to. When the community board first decided to sign on as a co-applicant to the application we have been talking about, this was part of our initial presentation. And Jackie, it'd be great if someone could check, I think I can find the date of that, and see what was actually in the resolution that the community board passed at that time. Because we were meeting with the borough president's office at the same time and maybe decided that they were just going to handle it. And so maybe it didn't end up in the community board resolution, but we definitely presented this as a package, right? Special district for the area where you can build buildings, and then let's make sure that they can't put some more buildings in front of that on the waterfront. So if somebody has that community board resolution handy to look it up, that would be super helpful.
That would be which month? Do you remember?
Let me think.
I think it was.
Sorry, we didn't come prepared for this. I know, Trevor, it was in your community room. It was that meeting.
Yeah, I think
whatever happened after that.
I remember, I just don't remember which month. I mean, I'm sure we can find it offline.
Yeah, Paula, why don't we take this offline? I mean, I think the goal is to find out the status, right? So I think we can do that offline. We don't have to. I mean, I also remember this plan was presented to a community board, but I don't recall the language that we adopted, or we didn't adopt anything. So I think give us some time to do the research and offline. We don't have to do it tonight. I think the goal is just to find out the status with the borough president's office.
Yeah, and I think it's on the agenda again for November. And
yeah, and I think for us, we're sort of here to like kind of tell on ourselves is that we've been working really hard on the rezoning application for the special district, but we didn't file anything for this part. Yeah. We thought the borough president's office was going to, but we now know they didn't either. So it's just sitting out there as a project nobody's taking a big lead on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Is that did you finish your presentation, or you have something else?
I think that's it. Am I forgetting something?
I think that's it, unless there's more questions.
Okay. Olympia.
Yes, so my other question is, since this is proceeding, and maybe we're going to have this new part. So it used to be that we had a representative from CB3. I mean, of course, Trevor is a member of the committee, but to avoid conflicts, etc. I think it used to be because there were, like, I think it was Jim Shelton, but now that Jim doesn't work anymore, are you, Jackie, the representative, or did you appoint another member of the committee to be there?
So Jim was the co-applicant. He was actually formally the person who signed that paper, if I remember correctly. Paula, correct me if I'm wrong. I think Jim his name was on it, no?
No,
Okay.
no. It was the co-applicant is the community board, and Susan signed for the community board. Jim and Mi-Fung were the reps. It was really Mi-Fung who was the rep from the committee before you became the rep from the committee.
Right.
And Jim was supporting Mi-Fung and then Jackie.
Yes. So I have been going to their meetings.
Oh yeah, Lisa was a rep for a while before that. We've been working on this for a long time.
So to answer Olympia's question, whenever there's a meeting between the co-applicants, I always represent CP3 to attend the meeting, and then I represent back to the office, whatever meeting conclusion. Trevor?
Yeah, and as Olympia mentioned, as a co-applicant, but I can ask, and we're not taking a vote, so the issue is sort of understood, but not an issue here, is that we will see some real life, probably situations when the LMCR, or what I call Seaport City 2.0, presents their plan next month, and it should be early or mid next month, where they talk about building in the water. So it's not a fantasy. This is actually happening. What we're trying to do is get ahead of that and not wind up in a situation where we said we could have done something. So this is the next month, November 3rd or 4th. There'll be a presentation from EDC on building out in the waterfront. And then mid-month, they'll have some open houses because they've come up with a plan already. So there is a urgency attached to this. I just want to make sure everyone's aware of that.
I mean, so what's the best way to address the urgency?
To see where the borough president is and to see what they, if anything, have filed, or if they have some paperwork on that. I think that's the first thing.
So we should do a reso requesting or send a letter. Can you, Jackie, as our chair, send a letter asking the status?
Yes, that's what we are trying to do. Trevor, you still have question or comment?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
Paula wants to say something.
Paula.
Thanks. The other thing that the community board could consider, not to tell you all what to do, but you could consider being a co-applicant with the borough president's office for this application. We can talk about the details of that. One thing to keep in mind is that since it's a mapping action, it needs to have a survey done. Most other land use actions don't. The borough president's office has surveyors on staff, so that makes it a cheaper application for them to do than for other folks. But that's just something you all could consider.
Yeah, so let us find out what the status is first, and then we take it from there. Okay. All right. Thank you. Are there any other questions? If no, I want to wrap it up and move to the next item on the agenda.
Just for the purpose of the minutes, are we saying that we will come back and discuss this further in November?
Can you not say November, because I need to find out. I mean, I want to say yes, but then I also want to be cautious about the time frame. So I want to reach out to the board president's office to find out the status first, and then we decide what to do. I mean, I also want to share the information with the co-applicants first. So we say we will follow up on that.
Okay, I'm just a little concerned because of the timing that Trevor.
The time frame.
Yeah.
So Trevor, is that what you're suggesting?
I think we can put it on, we used to have it every month. I don't think it's necessary now, but I think we can just put it on the agenda as a two-purchase update. And if we don't hear anything, we don't hear anything. Okay. We can have a short update. Everyone loves short updates, so we can always put it on the agenda.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Lisa.
Okay, no more questions. So thank you, Paula. Thank you, Iris. Oh, she's already gone.
And to hit the unmute.
Oh.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're still here. But thank you all. Thank you,
Oh, thank
everybody,
you.
for all your work. Calvin, nice to meet you. Hopefully we'll be talking soon, and have a great night.
Nice to meet you too.
Goodbye.
Okay.
Okay, next item on the agenda. Let me see. The next item is the NYCHA and Session 8 Subcommittee report. NYCHA and the Session 8 committee had a meeting early this month. And one of the, so I sent the committee members their minutes. And one of the main things discussed that night, is about a pet conversion plan at Campos Plaza number 2. So Jim Sheldon, you guys are familiar with Jim Sheldon. Now he works for Nature as a community planner. And Jim Sheldon presented their pet conversion plan, which would bring the building to become a project-based Section 8 and housing program. I think most of the land use committee members are pretty familiar with a pet conversion. Damaris is an expert on that. And Campos Plaza number 1 was already converted under a similar program a few years ago. The proposal would allow the 2 buildings to kind of like join together in Nature to have access new federal funding to complete comprehensive repair at this development. And under the pet conversion, Nature would procure a private entity to enter into a ground lease and manage the building. And so Nature already met with the Campos Plaza's TA to discuss the matter. And Jim also disclosed that Nature is in a preliminary talk with an adjacent developer about transferring the air rights of their buildings. And committee members asked a lot of questions regarding the future ownership structure, apartment wait list, rate increase, etc. Susan and Kelvin were both there. Susan, Kelvin, and Troy were there as well. So I don't know if they have anything else to add. Okay, looks like no. Lisa?
Yeah, oh, sorry.
Lisa, your question. You have a question?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know if I was muted. And am I muted?
No, you are good.
Oh, sorry. I'm trying to take the minutes at the same time. It's driving me crazy. Sorry, I'm a little concerned about this sale of air rights. What does this have to do with the site where the old auto parts, the
Yes.
Strauss auto parts? What are they anticipating? A high rise needing what would need additional air rights?
Yes, it would be a high-rise building. They are I mean, I saw Damaris was nodding her head. So if I miss any information, Damaris, you can fill it in. So yes, they are talking about transferring the air right from Campus 2 to this new site and to build a bigger building, larger building. But the money they receive from this transfer would be solely for the improvement of Campos Plaza, will be used for Campos Plaza only. But they also mentioned that this is a very preliminary talk and all the Campos Plaza TA people are aware of it. They also disclosed that information to their TA.
Is it the Strauss building, Damaris? Do you know?
Yeah, it is.
Oh.
Yeah, it's the old RNS. It's the old RNS Auto Shop.
Yeah.
And so they're gonna transfer the air rights to that location to add a few extra floors and a little bit of bulk. I don't have the presentation in front of me, and I'm sorry. I didn't know I was gonna be asked to answer questions, but Elise, if she's still around, and Paula, we're all working on that project with the Compost Resident Association and held several workshops over there already to educate the residents about, you know, how the program works and what are some things that they should know so that they can, you know, make decisions from an informed perspective, because RAD Pact has been very different in many neighborhoods, though there are some common threads that are the same. And so that's where they are right now. So it's two things. The first thing is the transfer of development rights, and then the RAD Pact. They're going to need to get what is a special amendment. That's not what it's called, and forgive me, but for their annual plan, they're going to need to get a special permission in order to enact RAD in the middle of the year, because they have already put forward their annual plan, and that's already, you know, in the process of being approved. So I don't know when they're going to do it, if they've already begun to do that, but I say all of that just to say that it makes it seem like we have time, but we don't really have time. With that also being said, there are a lot of residents that are interested in this project, mostly because Compost, if you don't know, has never had any major capital improvements to it since its construction. And they have a lot of repair issues. And so when the first building, which was the original Section 8 building, was converted under L&M, et cetera, people were upset because they wanted those repairs. So there is a movement of folks that are interested in seeing the projects move forward because they want the repairs. And then there are others who are very concerned about what the long-term, ownership and affordability implications may be. So.
Can I just go back to the issue of the building at on the corner that would receive the air rights? I do think that there needs to be a wider discussion about that, not just with residents, because that co-op building of all of the tenements, it's one co-op that goes for like, I don't know, 10 of the buildings or 6 buildings or something across 14th Street. Those people were very upset about the original plan for that finally didn't go into fruition. And now if this is going to be an even bigger building, it's going to be pretty controversial. So I hope that somebody is doing something to reach out to them. If there are preliminary plans for that and understanding about how much additional bulk is going to be permitted by the sale of the air rights, I think we have an obligation to make sure that's widely information is distributed.
Thank you, Lisa. Olympia and then Trevor.
I mean, I have some like basic questions. So for instance, I'm not sure like PACT RAD, is it the same thing? Like also it's the same. So PACT is not a different program than the RAD program. Okay.
It's just called PACT in New York, that's all.
Oh, okay.
It may have a slight difference here or there, but it's really the same program.
Okay. And so what does it stand for, PACT?
Oh God, I don't even remember, to be honest with you. They have so many acronyms. I think it's, I'll get you the name before we're done.
It's permanent affordability commitment together.
Yeah, that thing. It doesn't even make sense.
I mean, my concern, given the fact that we're about to have a new administration, and as we all know, every new mayor has their own ideas about how they're gonna save the world, and especially housing, and they all consistently fail on whatever grand ideas they have. So, I mean, I would like to understand. We know, like this scarcity mentality. Of course, I can see the perspective of the individual tenant saying, just give us the money, fix us the thing. But I feel that, there needs to be a presentation and long-term understanding of how is this, playing with everything else, not just air rights sale, what is it called? The other privatization of NYCHA stuff like the 2.0, like, and all these kind of things with RAD. And
oh, just so you know, Olympia, RAD is part of NYCHA 2.0.
Yeah, also it's one of the ways.
2.0 is a series of preservation strategies that the Housing Authority is trying to employ. And it's, using different ones, like a little toolbox in different developments. PACT happens to be the thing with the most traction right now.
Mm. And we have commitment from the new mayor about what they're going to do with that, or they cannot impact that?
I mean, I don't think we have a commitment from the new mayor, but I don't think that it matters unless, we want to make a considerable amount of noise to stop it. From what I've heard from the new, the incoming mayor-elect, if that's what happens, is that, he is a fan of NYCHA's preservation strategies. So I'm not particularly looking to him at this moment for, an ally if we were to oppose this. With that being said, our goals, we have our opinion and what we think, and we have our position, but we also are working with the residents to advance their voice and bringing in as much information as possible. So again, they can make the right decision, and also technical assistance that can help them in their decision-making. But it's not up to us, though that doesn't mean that in the end, we won't, be vocal about a position if it's not the same. But, we feel very strongly that the residents are really working to organize themselves to understand this issue, to be involved. The resident association in particular is very aware and concerned and wants to make sure that residents are weighing in. I mean, would you say that's right, Elise? I'm sorry, I'm gonna.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think we have conversations weekly about that. Seems stressful because we want to make sure that all of the residents really have a true way of providing input. So we've been spending a lot of time on that with them.
Yeah, and also for the TDR stuff, it's about 85,000 square feet. So they have identified 100,000 square feet, and what's in question is about 85,000 square feet. And I believe, Elise, do you remember, is it 10 or $15 million that they're saying it's valued at?
I actually don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah, it's between, I think it's about $15 million that they're saying that is valued at. And, from our perspective, it may feel like not an equal trade-off, but.
And will it impact also the services, because Campus Plaza gives essential services to the schools nearby?
Like, what do you mean?
Like they have all the Campus Plaza is the free after school for schools that don't have free after school in that area.
Maybe in the NYCHA Community Center at Campus. I mean, I don't know that it's going to impact that. I mean, I don't know. That's a good question. What happens to the community spaces when PACT happens? I think that they're included. And again, NYCHA still has some sort of governance over part of it, but mostly it's in the hands of the developer. That they manage it, they collect the money, they make decisions around evictions. NYCHA funnels the resources and owns the land and could weigh in, but that also really depends on the appetite of the administration.
And Olympia, just to your point about the politics, what I realized that is Kalina's office and Harvey's office, they do not support PET conversion. So I'm trying to, of course, and also Susan, we are trying to find out what is the reason they don't support the PET conversion. And hopefully if possible, we want to bring them to community board to explain that position at the NYCHA subcommittee meeting. Trevor and then Susan.
Thank you, Damaris and Alicia. You pretty much answered all my questions, and it had to do with residents and information and technical support and having a connection. So I'm going to redirect a little bit of it. Do you feel like they're going to be able to get what they want, with the exception of that you said $15 million? It's probably worth more. And also, I guess that was my only question.
I think that they will get a significant portion of the repairs and capital work that they want. I don't know that they will get everything that they want. But with that being said, there is getting the physical, repairs, and then there is putting your tenancy at risk for other factors. The rules are different. They're not exactly the same when they convert the units into the Section 8 model. So that's sort of, I think, another piece where we're trying to do our best to convey the urgency in folks understanding what it is exactly that they're signing up for. This is a tricky situation. You do nothing, nothing happens, these buildings continue to deteriorate. You move forward, they don't deteriorate maybe, but you know, people are dealing with other issues like secondary displacement, even, you know, like being evicted or a number of different issues. So it's a really challenging position, you know, and yeah.
Thank you.
Susan?
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm that the funding does include the community center along with the money they're getting from Brad Hoylman that we supported.
So what does that mean, Susan, exactly?
That there's going to be major reconstruction of the community center.
But it will be free or?
Yeah, it's going to be the same programs and everything.
Thank you. Let me see what else. So at the nature committee meeting, we also discussed the budget priorities, which will be discussed all together with the land use priorities later. And those budget priorities were included in the minutes I sent you, so I just don't want to repeat that. Okay, and then the next item on the agenda is
Jackie.
Oh, I'm sorry, Damaris.
Just one thing before we go, I think I just want to just clear up one thing. I'm not entirely sure that it is 100% accurate to say that, for us to think that Harvey and Carlina's office are opposed to PACT, right?
Okay.
All right. I think they see the challenges of it, and I think they are concerned about it. But I don't want to misquote them in saying that, because they alerted us, and we've worked with them, and you know, from what I could tell, they did not take a public position on this yet.
Susan, did I misquote them? I thought like at the meeting.
Because that's not been my conversation with them.
No, Pedro did not say they didn't support it. He was very, very careful and did not give a position. He did say that he appreciated a lot of the process that involved the reaching out to the community. He did not give a position. He was very careful.
Okay, thank you. So maybe we can ask them what the concerns are and what are their concerns. Paula, let me finish this and then I'll have you to add. So I guess maybe we can like find out what the concerns are from their office and bring them to the next nature meeting to share their thoughts. Paula?
I guess Damaris called on me. I was waiting to see if everything would get said, but let me see if I can fill in some gaps. The reason I was shaking my head is the reason that you're hearing something kind of confusing from the elected officials' offices is because for the first time ever, some magical confluence of events that I think has something to do with folks in this room has forced NYCHA to say, we will do what the residents tell us to do, which is not what they've done in the past. Even though they've given a lot of lip service to that, they are really letting the resident association take the lead in developing a process for figuring out if the residents want their development to go through PACT or not. And so you might hear some really weird sounding things from their offices, because I think everybody's really trying to defer to a process that hasn't happened yet. That process is still in the next couple of months. So I wouldn't try to corner anybody into a position. It's just too soon. And I think that once that process happens, the offices will get in line behind the residents, whatever the residents want to do.
Thank you. And Paula, can you share with us? Paula, can you share with us the if you are? I mean, why are you talking about this? Are you talking about
we're counsel
this
to the resident association.
I'm sorry.
We're counsel to the resident association, but I'm like, what I can say. These are all things that the things I am saying were said at a public meeting that press was at the community center. I'm just repeating them.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure the committee members knows that you are the counsel for the.
Yeah, but I was also at that meeting where these things were said out loud. And then Damaris, it's not that you're forgetting the details about the transfer of air rights. It's that meeting hasn't happened yet. The developers were going to meet with the residents.
They already had that meeting with them. It was before we started all meeting with them. So it did happen, but I don't have all the details because I don't have it in front of me. All I can say is you should rest assured that the resident association is really trying to do their due diligence. in making sure that everybody's having a voice in this process. That's what, to me, is a really important factor here.
Thank you. And Olympia, you have the last question, so we can move to the next item.
I wanted to thank also Calvin because I saw the things that you put in the chat, and welcome you also at the land use meeting officially because we hadn't met you yet. And one clarification that I wanted to ask is when PACT is being considered, and it's great if NYCHA will, yield to the residents. Like, do you already have some specific entity that you are negotiating, or there's going to be a bid and then someone will say, oh, I'm interested in running RAD at, so do I have an interlocutor, or it's there's going to be a bid?
So by this point, NYCHA usually already knows, but they will have sent out an RFP or RFEI and gotten, a developer. And then when, in my experience, I could be wrong, once that happens is when they come to the development. Okay. Not usually before. I haven't seen them, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. I haven't seen them go to the development and say, we're thinking about RAD with no developer or nothing. They usually come with a developer who's already agreed to some parameters, but just basic PAC, not like what they're going to give you and all that other stuff. And then that's when they start engaging residents.
But they don't tell you who is the developer, or they will?
I think they tell you once you're working with them. Yeah. They tell you once you're working with them. But that's been my experience, that, there's usually an RFP and they come to the residents.
I'm asking because I know from other cases that I saw that it really, with these things, it really is, it's different depending who is the developer, basically.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Paula. And thank you, Damaris, for sharing all these insights. Next item on the agenda is the DNS and the budget priorities. So let me see. Lisa, can you pull up the budget priorities, please?
I need to make her co-host. Hold on.
Thank you. So the DNS and the suggested budget priorities were sent to you yesterday. Just to remind everyone that we have already finished the DNS discussion back in May, but we need to formally pass it tonight. So we are just going to discuss the budget priorities. And also traditionally, land use have a very few items get on the priorities list. They are mostly composed of parks and schools. But nature is also under land use, so we always advocate for them as well. Anyone has questions about the procedure, or Susan, do you have anything to add on that?
Well, first, I'm going to ask if you can make the screen share larger.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can. Otherwise, I'll go get my magnifying glass. I'm sure everybody knows the procedure by now, but just quickly, the board as a whole has 40 capital and 25 expense priorities. The ones from each committee are collated to make one list, but the ranking from each committee is kept. Basically, it's to say how we want agencies to allocate money to programs or to capital expenses, but we're trying to bring money into the community. So we look for programs that need funding or haven't been funded, and not programs that we may like, but are already well funded. And just the other thing is we made an agenda to research items for the agencies. We did that in July. The 12 boards met together with the agencies in September. Board chairs were at the meeting. So Jackie was at the agencies that covered this committee. And it's very hard in this administration to get information because everything is wonderful. And there was very little actually that related to this committee that seemed like a good advocacy. It was actually recommended to us, and I don't remember from who, that we asked for baselining the Stabilizing NYC program, which had been brought to us in previous years. Steve, I think you might have been even involved in that, but it was always funded by city council discretionary money, so we didn't have a say in it. So what the suggestion is regarding that this year is to take it out of city council and have the agency baseline it.
Thank you, Susan. So the list in front of you also include the major items. And so I just wanted to let you know that the subcommittee agreed that the expense priorities from last year is largely still good. And as you can see from the screen, they are, I actually need to enlarge my screen to read that too.
View, go to view.
Oh,
or-
wait. I just figured out how to do it. Sorry.
Thank you.
Does that help? Is that better?
It's good. It's good. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. So they are for the ground maintenance and building maintenance staff, and also the waste management at NYCHA. And for the capital items, actually, well, we all know all the NYCHA buildings need a lot of capital funding. And the reason we shortlist these 4 items is because these capital priorities were selected because these buildings are senior housing projects or with high senior population and in need of elevator upgrades. NYCHA has a lot of capital needs, but as Susan mentioned earlier, we can only put 40 items in the capital priorities, and we figured that these 4 are high need. Damaris, you have a hand.
I do. I mean, I'm trying to understand how we came up with these priorities, because there are major priorities in all of the developments, including gas pipes and other things. And I don't know how we can arbitrarily make a decision about what's more important than the other. So it would be helpful to know how this got on here. And I'm just wondering if, rather than name them specifically in that way, if we could say something like, make sure that the elevators and make sure that the gas pipes, or, you know, something like that, that's a little bit more general, because I mean, there's a lot of issues everywhere.
Yeah.
If I could just partially answer that.
Yeah.
The way they got on was because that's what the committee decided. But as to speak to the other item, no, for the budget priorities, it really goes to money to this specific thing or that specific thing. Pipes and stuff, a lot of things were shown as funded. So that's one of the reasons. We actually had a chart in front of us, which I don't have now, but we did at the NYCHA committee. And I believe a lot of the gas and that sort of thing was already funded. So everything was specifically researched, and the committee was given the chart of things that were not funded.
Right. Well, I'd love to see that listed. So maybe you can email it to me when you find
Yeah.
it, Susan.
If I don't remember tomorrow, just shoot me an email, please.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, and the reason the subcommittee member chose these items are because these buildings are all senior buildings or building with a very high senior population. And we figured that, I mean, all these capital needs are competing, right? They're all important, but when we think about what are more important, we feel like elevator upgrade, it is like the most important compared to other important items. So that is the reason we come up with these items. And just like Susan said,
that makes sense, like in the senior buildings to prioritize that. Can I just ask one question if anybody has the answer? on this list in this chart of, completed or pending capital projects, did it say anything about Melser houses?
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's not all the senior buildings.
It did, and actually Pat from Margaret's office was at the meeting. They have just gotten a huge funding. And Pat, Pat had confirmed that also, because they're involved with the seniors.
That they just got funding, you said?
Yes.
At Melter, do you know what it was for? Maybe if it's on that list, then you can just send me the list that you have.
It's on the list. So I'm going to say, as far as the office is concerned, we didn't make any suggestions on this, but what we did do is take the two charts of need from the needs, I think it was from 2017, and then the chart that they provided to us of funding. And we did a lot of research to cross off all the things that were funded, and then gave a chart of what was left to the committee.
Okay, thank you for that.
Olympia.
So, every year we have this procedure that is hard to follow. And so to me, picking up on specific buildings and saying we want that building elevator or whatever, I feel this should be a resolution, like that building comes and makes the case and we make a resolution or something like that. But in terms of budget priorities, I want to echo what Damari said. And I mean, I feel in general, we should say, we should research and find what are the issues. But if we go something like that and we don't want to do a resolution, as a minimum, I would attach that document that Susan is referring to, because it really is not as transparent and easy to follow, even for us that we're committee members. And so I feel we need finally to tune up on how we do this process, because in the trainings that I got repeatedly over the years from the borough president, like I know CB3 has developed a particular way, but that doesn't have to be the only way, and it's not set in stone. So we as a committee could improve on that. And
so actually a lot of it is set in stone, and we have to put this into a specific software program that is on the portal for city planning. And
no, the office does. You are right. The office
very
is set in
specific
stone.
questions.
Sorry?
They ask, so we put it into the portal. They ask very specific questions. The priorities go to the agencies. So NYCHA gave us the list, and the priorities are going back to NYCHA. So they certainly have all that information. I'm going to say Jackie was at all these meetings. So Jackie, as far as process, you certainly should speak up. The difference that they have as far as different boards, some boards, the committees, like I know in CB2, the committees don't vote on it. Only the executive committee creates the priorities. There are various different ways, but as far as how you word the priorities, that is pretty set, and they will tell you, like I don't know if you looked at the information on the website for the member resources there. So every meeting had minutes. I sent this out to all the chairs. So we go under member resources. There are agenda items, agency answers, and minutes for every agency. So you actually have all that information. Along with that is the answers that OMB gave to us last year for our budget priorities, which ones are funded, why they agree they should or should not be funded. If we accidentally put, which we did, put two things into one priority, they will reject it for that reason. And that's all on our website. So there is, I think, a lot more transparency than is almost accessible because it's too much.
Yeah, but just to clarify, because I'm talking about the trainings and what is set in stone, what the office needs to do when you interact with the agencies, exactly as you say. However, we as a committee have latitude on how we write these documents, right? And it's great to hear you now that you said to the chairs of the committees all this information, etc. Exactly as you said, that website has, needs to be redesigned. So if you do want us to read, me, I read everything you send and I RSVP for every training. So do share it with the entire committee if you want us to see it, because if you just post it in that website, that really doesn't go anywhere.
No, well, actually, I leave it up to the committee chairs to do that.
I think the process, most of the committee members on this committee are not new, and we have been doing this for multiple years. And Olympia, I certainly can go over the process with you again offline. And if you have other questions, then we can maybe talk about that.
Yeah, but it's not just for me, and we can discuss it, as part of how this committee operates in order for us to be doing our job better, for not just for us, right, but for the people we're serving, so that we are accessible to them and they understand how we do it, right?
My feeling is that for the nature items, right, the nature items were discussed at the nature subcommittee meeting. So I expect people who are interested in talking about nature items to show up at that meeting, and also the process involving your prior preparation. If you have any specific items you feel like need to get on the priority, you can also email us. So because all these suggestions need the office to do the research as well, to see, for example, we can say we need funding for this particular thing, this particular program, but after research, the funding is actually available, and so that we cannot just put it on the list. That's why I feel like if you have any specific program or priorities that you think should be on the list, you can email me ahead of time so that I can bring it to the attention to the office, and they can research it for the next year.
We do more than just research. We put it on the agenda that all 12 boards go to. Another thing that the committees can do if they have an area of concern is have a district level meeting just for your board, just for CB3. We do that in parks every year. Last year we did it for schools and a few other ones. So there are different things the committees can do. But every July, when we ask for these, what do you want us to put on the agenda to be researched, we get very few requests.
Present.
I'm sorry, Sheffer, did you say something?
Thought you were taking attendance for the last vote, sorry.
Thank you, Sheffer. Okay, so I want to go back to the...
He heard me say, he heard me refer to his name.
I want to go back to the priority list. I want to know if anyone, I don't want to repeat everything, just for time consideration. I want to know if committee members has problem with any committee member has problem with the list.
And you're talking about both the expense and capital?
Yes, both expense and the capital. Land use generally do not have a lot of items on the final priority list, but I just feel like I want to advocate. I myself want to advocate for nature because it just is needed.
I'd make a motion to accept these priorities as written.
Thank you, Lisa.
Second it.
Thank you, Damaris. Herman, you're muted.
Yeah, no, I just want to say, listening to the different explanations for all the process that takes or should take place with nature is so overwhelming, because if I just walk down the street, I will know nature. There are so many things you could see from the outside rather than even on the inside. You know, bad sidewalks. I don't know how much they spend for slip and falls, for the stuff or the scaffoldings or the things that going on. Also, just away from Susan, I'm wondering, there is 3 store or 4 storefronts that are vacant. I mean, those are monies that is wasted or stuff, but you know, so we can't put all of these all in one. So, you know, I would just go with what is here tonight. But considering the stuff that I personally see and know in nature, it's going to take more than just these little priorities to solve their problems.
I agree with you, Herman. I agree with you. There's another consideration for creating this list is that we only, like Susan said, we have 25 we have 25 budget priorities and 40 capital priorities for the entire board. So we are also competing against other committees. But I agree with you that nature needs a lot of funding, whether capital or budget. So there's a motion on the floor. Lisa already motion to approve it. I want to see if everybody agree. Can I make it simple? If anyone disagree with the motion, can you raise your hand?
Does it need to be second? Don't have to?
Damaris already
Yes, it was
second.
seconded.
Okay.
I don't see any hand opposing it, so I just consider the motion approved.
No, we got it. You have to vote.
We have to vote.
We have to
Roll call
vote.
vote.
Okay. All right, okay. So Lisa, can we do this? Let me see, this is also the final item on the agenda. So can we
Don't we have to also approve the district needs statement?
Yes.
Yes, along with the district needs statement. And I don't want to spend time on the district needs statement because it was already discussed in May, and we all agreed to it already.
So is this motion to accept both the district needs statement and the capital and expense budget priorities?
That's correct, Lisa.
Oh, having made the motion, I'm glad to know that.
Thank you. That's why you are the secretary. You're the great secretary.
Damaris,
also-
are you comfortable seconding that now?
I
And
would.
also to adjourn the meeting.
I mean, Jackie, so that we know, it says in the email that it was finalized. So this is exactly like May, or it has been finalized, so it's a bit different than May.
Exactly like May.
Then yeah.
Wait a minute.
No, Lisa made
No.
some.
She's talking about the district needs statement.
But the district needs statement, we didn't see the updated stats today.
No, the one I sent you was already the updated version. The one I sent you last night. You
Was
made a
different than
couple.
May.
Yes. You made a couple change requests, and those were incorporated in the final version. So the one you received in the email last night is the final version with your changes.
And the updated stats.
Yes.
Yes.
So, yeah,
So can we do
I
the roll-
got confused because Susan just said it was the same, but it wasn't the same.
I'm sorry. Yes, we always update all the stats. I mean,
Do you
that's-
want to highlight us what is the differences now, Lisa? So that we don't vote on something we don't know? What did you change?
I didn't change anything. The version was sent out. I can't
The
highlight
con-
anything.
There's a vote on the floor right now for
Yeah.
the district needs, capital priorities, and to adjourn the meeting.
Yeah, but we
correct?
should know what we're voting on, Trevor, right?
Did you
I
see
think he sent it out last night, correct?
did you review it,
But
Olympia?
for open meeting law, guys, if it is different than May, the correct thing to do is just to state that. And there are people of the public here, right? So they should know we're voting on something that was circulated on a private email, but they don't know what we're voting on.
So if I could say all the
committee
content
members, if
was
I may,
finalized.
Susan.
Let Susan finish it. Let Susan
All
finish.
the content was finalized. The committee said this is what we want. That was finalized. I don't remember what month it was. After the end of the fiscal year, we always update the stats, but that's not something that the committee says, I want this or I don't want this. So nothing has been changed to the content after the committee last discussed it. It was, what you asked for was put in after the fiscal year. The stats are always updated, and that was it.
And that's, I mean, here it is. I just put it up on, I think you can see it. It's on the screen, correct?
I don't see it.
Oh, aren't I still screen sharing?
You
Yeah, you have the
shared.
priorities, not the district. We're just talking about the district needs statement.
Yes,
You're-
I just put up the district needs statement on
I
my.
don't
Have to
see that.
unshare the other one first, I think.
Oh, I see what you mean. Got it. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yeah.
So basically these stats are new. And I
Yes.
don't know what else.
So if I can say, we didn't add any new stats, we just updated what was there.
So Lisa, you at the last meeting, at the May meeting, you found a couple typos or change some wordings. And before I send out the file to you guys last night, I checked them and they were updated. So this is the finalized version. I just want to let
Yeah, I
everyone.
read it and I was happy with it.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Lisa, can you take the roll calling?
Yeah, I
And-
just want to be clear
Oh.
that when I made the motion, it didn't include the district needs. I just want to, I'm happy to include that. I just wanted to make sure that the Damaris was okay and seconding.
Damaris-
both.
Lisa, do you just want to make a new motion then?
Okay. Well, I'd rather amend the
Okay,
it-
yeah.
Damaris, are you okay with it as restated?
Yes.
Okay, great. So that's the motion on the floor to approve both the district needs statement and the housing and land use budget priorities. And so and to adjourn the meeting. So Jackie,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Jonathan, still absent, correct?
Correct.
Herman,
Yes.
Trevor,
Yes.
Lisa, yes. Olympia,
Yes.
Damaris,
Yes.
Troy,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
great. So it's unanimous and we're adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Night.
Thank you. Good night.